All right, next we are going to try to answer these 5 questions. And we'll start with number 1. Are there any geographic trends with diabetes in the US? And so looking at our data, we could fairly quickly figure out what exact state has the highest rate of diabetes, which one has the lowest rate. But it might be more difficult just looking at the numbers to figure out, are there any areas of the United States where the rate of diabetes is either high or low? And so the best way to do that is to make a map. And so I will show you how to do that now. All right. To make our map, go to our Excel file, and we're going to highlight the state names. Now, to highlight the state names, click on whatever state is at the top of your column. In my case, it's Alabama. Yours might be different, but that's okay. Click on the top. Hold down Shift, and there are a couple ways you could do this. The way I like to do it is just hold down Shift, and then I just click on the down arrow and keep hitting down until you have selected all the states. Now, if you just hold down the down arrow, it will go very quickly, and it only takes a few seconds. And so we will click on all of the state names. Now next, we really want to highlight all the state names and all of the percentages, because we're going to make a map of the percent of adults with diabetes in each state. Highlighting this second column can be a little bit difficult. If they were right next to each other, you could keep holding down Shift and just hit the right arrow, and it would get the ones that are right next to it. But it's harder, or whatever data is in the column next to it, but it's harder if the columns are not right next to each other. Here's the way that I do this. First, and make sure you follow these instructions very carefully, because some students do find this difficult, at least at first. Click and hold down Control if you are using a PC, and don't let go. If you're using a Mac, it would be Command. So click and hold down Control. Don't let go until I tell you to. All right, so that should be held down. Go to the top percentage, and you're going to click and hold the left mouse button. Do not let go of either of those two buttons. So click and hold. So right now I have Control held down and the left mouse button. If you have a Mac, you would have Command and the left mouse button. Do not let go of either of those, and now when you move your mouse, you will be able to highlight the second column. Now, if you don't get that the first time, you're not alone. Just try it again, and if you need to, pause and rewind this video and make sure you are following the instructions exactly. To make our map, go to Insert, and then find where it says Maps. I do believe you need to be connected to the internet, so if you have any issues with that, make sure you are connected to the internet, but click on Maps and click on Filled Map. And you will have a map that has every state shaded in according to what percentage of people in that state have diabetes. And in this case, the darker the shade of blue, the higher the percent of people with diabetes in that state. And the lighter the shade of blue, the lower the percentage of people with diabetes. Now, with any map or any chart that we make in this, we want to make an accurate and descriptive title. Make sure you think about your who, what, where, and when, the 4 W's. And so these are the percent of adults with diabetes. And so the who is adults with diabetes. The what is what percent of people have diabetes, what percent of adults. The where, we're not going to put in the title because it's fairly obvious from the context that we are talking about states in America. But if you wanted to, you could put by state. That wouldn't be wrong. I'm going to skip that though, because I do think that it is implied by the map itself. And don't forget the when. So again, this is data from 2020. And so we're going to make sure you always put 2020. All right, and so with that, we're almost done with this map. The one thing I would suggest is decide if you want a title on the legend. Right now it just says Series 1. I don't think I need a title because the information is fairly obvious from the title itself. So what I would suggest you do is just get rid of that Series 1. I will show you how to do that. Click on the title itself, right click on it, go to Select Data, select where it says Series 1 and hit Edit. And for series name, you can just put 2 quotation marks and it will say just blank series. That's a way of saying it's empty. You could also just put 1 space if you wanted to. That would do the same thing. Hit OK and you'll see that it no longer says Series 1. All right, so there is our map. Now, from this map, let's look at where does it appear that there are where are the states that have high percentages of diabetes? You can see many of them are in the South, I would say, and even maybe in the Midwest. Where are the states that have low percentages of adults with diabetes? You can see that's in kind of the Northeast. You could call that New England, and in the West in general. Okay. All right. And so we can use that information to make a brief description of what are the geographic trends. So here's our map, and we will make our description. So above, let me just zoom out a little bit. Above is a map of the percent of adults with diabetes by state in 2020. And notice that my first sentence just kind of describes exactly what this map is showing and what the data is. The South, specifically the Southeast, and parts of the Midwest have states with the highest percent of adults with diabetes. The West Coast and New England have states with low percents. Now, one thing that is important is to identify any outliers. So what are states that don't meet your trends that you might see? So North Dakota could be considered an outlier since its percent is higher than the states that surrounding it. And if you click on the state itself, you will see that's at 9.3, and all the states near it, now it doesn't want to let me click on it, but that's okay, are about 1% lower. Oh, you don't need to click on it. That's why you just hover on it. So that's over 1% lower, right? So most of those are, the ones that are directly next to it are a full percent lower than them, lower than North Dakota. Okay. You might also notice that Florida is in the South, but a little bit lower than some of the other very high percentages that you see in the South. So that would be another outlier you might point out when you are making your map description. Okay, but let's move on and answer some more questions. What is the total number of adults with diabetes in the U.S.? All right. Now here we have all of the number of adults with diabetes in each state, but we don't have that for the entire United States. But what we can do is we can add up the number of adults with diabetes in each state and in Washington, D.C., and that would tell us how many people in the United States have diabetes, how many adults. So what we want to do is we want to add all of the numbers in column B. The way we do that is just, I put United States right here. I'm going to click right below all the numbers I want to add up. Make sure you're in home, and then just click on the sum. Click on this where it says sum, and it should automatically put in this formula. The sum formula equals sum just tells you to add all the numbers in this column, starting at B5 at the top, going to B55 at the bottom. So B5 is the very first one, and B55 is the very last one, and you can see we're adding all the numbers that are highlighted here. So hit enter, and that tells us that there are about 28,513,000 people. Remember, this data is in thousands. It's not the exact number. It's how many thousands of people, which means if I multiply this by 1,000, it's about 28 million people in the United States. 28 million adults have diabetes. Next, what is the overall percent of adults with diabetes in the US? To find the percent, we want to do the part divided by the whole always, right? And we're trying to figure out what percent of adults, so the whole would be the number of adults in the United States, have diabetes. What percent of adults have diabetes? Now we already have the part. We know there's about 28 million people in the United States with diabetes, but we need the whole. How many adults live in the United States? So again, what we want to do in this case is add up, find the total adult population in thousands of the United States as a whole, and we're going to do that again by adding up all the different states and Washington, D.C. So just like we did before, click right below that column, go to this button right here, click on sum, and it should automatically populate and this formula and add up all the numbers in column C. You can always double check your work, make sure that what's highlighted is what you want to be adding. Hit enter. And so we see, and again, that's in thousands of people, so it's about 288 million adults live in the United States. And with these two numbers, we can find the percentage. And remember, you do part divided by whole. So the number of adults with diabetes, that would be B56, that's my part, divided by the whole, which would be the number of adults in America, that would be C56. So I do equals B56 divided by C56, and I get a percent. Now, sometimes, or often, when you do this, you will get a decimal at first, like happened before. And remember, just hit the percent button and make sure you add that extra decimal place. So about 9.9% of the adults in the United States have diabetes. So it's actually a fairly large number of, fairly large percentage of people in America have diabetes, almost 1 in 10. All right, what percent of California's adult population has diabetes? This we already answered, to be honest, because we found the percentage right here. Right? That's the percent of adults with diabetes in California. It's about 9.2%, or about 3 million out of 33 million. But the next question is a little bit different. What percent of adults with diabetes live in California? Right? So look at how those are different from each other. So in number 4, what percent of California's adult population has diabetes? The part is adults who have diabetes, and the whole is adults in California. So adults in California with diabetes divided by adults in California will give us that percentage. 5 is a little bit different. What percent of all the adults with diabetes live in California? So the whole is, and the whole will often happen after the word of. So all adults with diabetes, that's all of the adults with diabetes that live in America. That's my whole. And I want to figure out some of them live in California. That's my part. Adults with diabetes that live in California is what percent of all adults that have diabetes. And so I'll do this down here. I'll just do it off to the side. And so again, my part is going to be adults with diabetes in California. So I'm going to put equal. I'm going to find adults with diabetes in California. That's about 3 million. So I just click on that, and that'll be B9, and you can see that populated in my formula, and then I divide that by, so those are adults with diabetes in California divided by adults with diabetes in the entire United States, and that is this one right here, which is B56. Hit enter, and again, you'll most likely get a decimal the first time you do it, but just hit that percent and increase it by 1 decimal place, and you'll get 10.6%. So of all the adults that have diabetes, about 10.6% of those adults live in California. All right, and so that is the end of this section of our lesson.